and welcome. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
And here we are. Hopefully you'll see it in a second. There we are. So we are in Parshat, I'll show you in a moment, P'kudei. And it's the very last Parsha of the book of Shemot, the book of Exodus. And once again, we're back heavily into the construction of the tabernacle, and in this particular case, the vestments of the priests and the high priest, etc. And so that we wind up reading about the construction of the tabernacle actually many times. The initial instructions by God to Moses conveying those instructions to the Israelites. We might break it down to say the collection of the various parts of the tabernacle, the fabrication of them, the putting together of the various components of the tabernacle. And here in this parsha, we begin with the accounts, that is an accounting of the various materials that went into the construction of the tabernacle, and how much silver, how much gold, etc., etc. And I think that the reason for this is that the tabernacle represents the apex, you might say, of the relationship of the Jewish people to Hashem, to God, and the ability to sense the divine presence and bring that divine presence into this world in which we live, in which we inhabit. So here we're in the middle of the vestments of a high priest, and it says Vayasu al HaChoshen. So we're in the middle of talking about the Choshen. The Choshen is the breastplate. Sometimes it's called Choshen Mishpat, the breastplate of judgment, and I will show you a picture in a moment. And every garment of the high priest came to atone for a different element. And the Choshen came to, as is implied by its name, to areas in judgment. And that is because judgment is obviously, on the one hand, supposed to be a rational process, to be unbiased. And on the other hand, we simply can't help being emotional on some kind of level. And this was to atone for quite possibly unintentional areas of judgment. Intention is a big issue, and how to what degree that affects the ability to atone, of course, is directly proportional. In other words, the more you do, in fact, do it unintentionally, the more that one might be capable of gaining atonement. And of course, also a sense of remorse and tshuva. We know that tshuva is an extremely important element, right? So, vayasu ala Choshen, and they made on the Choshen, so now we're talking about the fabrication, right? Sharsherut gavlut. So a sharsheret is a chain, gavlut of corded work, ma'aseh avot, made in a braid, as a braid. Let's finish the sentence. Sahav tahor, of pure gold. So let me see if I can find the breastplate. Here we are. So this is what we're talking about here. Okay. So you can see, and I think by gavlut would mean that one cord was on top of another cord that way, and also braided. And I can try and make it a little bit larger for us. Let's see. There we go. But this is what we're talking about here. See what I can do here. Excuse me. Let me go back into the text. So, Vayasu shtei mishpatzot zahav, they made 2 squares of gold, ushtei tabot zahav, and 2 rings of gold, Vayitnu et shtei hatabaot al shnei ktsot hachoshen, and they placed the two rings on the two edges of the breastplate. So again, let's see if I can show that. Let's see if this is it. Yep, good. So here we can see this is the mishbetzet, right? The square. And look here at the ring. You can see it right on the two edges of the breastbase. So let's go here. Vayitnu shtei ha'avotot hazahav, and they put the two avotot hazahav al shtei hatabaot, and I believe we're talking here, the avotot, we're talking about those chains. It's not here, they're not using the word for shasheret, but they're using an avot, which I think would be like the braided work, right, of gold, al shtei hatabaot, on the two rings, al ktsot hachoshen, that were on the edges of the breastplate. So again, let's take a look here. So this is the avot, this braided work, right? If I'm not mistaken, the myrtle, right, that we use is called Eitz Avot, and that is because the myrtle twig has three. The kosher myrtle twig for a lulav has to have three leaves coming out of each little stem at each joint or point along the stem. And the idea of braiding is that it's a minimum of three cords. So here we are. I believe this is what we're talking about, that they ran it through these rings. The and the edges of these two braids, right? Natnu al shtei hamitzvatzot, they placed on the two squares. Vayitnum al kitfot ha'ephod, and then they placed them on the shoulder parts, right, of the ephod, el mul panav, opposite his face. And we'll show you what we're talking about here. Okay, so first of all, we see how they took this, and this is how they placed them on the mishpatzot, on the squares. And now let me see if I can get this for you. Right, so let's see what I can do here. We can see exactly what's going on here. This is exactly as it's being described, right? It's slightly forward, and this is on the shoulder straps of the Ephod, and I'm going to show you that right now. Let's take a look. This is the Ephod. That's what it looked like. It was an apron, right? And these were the shoulder straps right here. You can see. So that's what we're seeing over here. And I can show you another picture. Let's see here. So you can see the shoulder straps going up from the ephod over the high priest's shoulders. And then I'm going to show you a picture from the front. Now you can see it coming around. Okay. So they're holding up the breastplate by these two chains. Okay. And let's go here. Let's keep going. All right. So, Vayasu shtei tabot zahav, and they made two rings. Vayasumu al shnei ktsot hachoshen al sfato, right? And they placed them, these two rings, on the two edges of the breastplate, al sfato, on its safa is a lip, asher el ever ha'ephod baita, which was on the opposite of the ephod inside. So let me show you. These are not the rings we just read about. These are different rings. So let me see if I can show you that here. Let's go here. It's these rings. You see? And what happened was this was folded up behind this piece. Oh dear, I may have, let's see, good, okay, that's good. But these are the rings that we're talking about now, these two gold rings on the edges. And it would be on the inside because the fold, right? The fold would go here, and these would be on the inside. If you folded this back up over this, these rings would be on the inside. So let's again get back into the text. Vayasu shtei tabot zahav, vayitnum al shtei kitfot ha'ephod milmata. And they made, again, 2 rings of gold, and they placed them on the 2 edges of the ephod, versus by those 2 shoulder straps on the lower edge, mimul panav, opposite his face, unless it's referring, the panav here referring to the surface of the ephod, and we'll take a look in a second. L'umat machbarato. So, right next to where it connected, mima'al l'chesed ha'ephod, on above the chesed ha'ephod was the belt of the ephod. Let me show you what we're talking about here. Okay, so this is the chesed ha'ephod, this piece. And here we're talking about rings that were made right here. These rings placed right here. Okay, and we'll see how this worked. Vayechasu et Choshen, right? Mitabato. And I believe what this means is they connected the breastpiece, mitabato el tabot ha'ephod, from its rings, the rings that were on the Choshen, to the rings ha'ephod that were on the ephod, biftil tchelet, with a blue thread or a blue ribbon, lihiyot al cheshev ha'ephod, so that it would be on the belt of the ephod, v'lo yizach ha'choshen, so that the choshen would not move. In other words, here we're talking about moving back and forth, me'al ha'ephod, from on the ephod, kasher tziva Hashem et Moshe, just as God had commanded Moses. And we'll take another look now to see this. Okay, see what this, take it from this side. See, here's the strap. Let me see if I can make it bigger. So you can see it's tied to the ring. These are the blue threads that we were talking about. And we'll go here to the front. So you can see how it came around, right, to the ring that was here, so that it would stop this from flapping back and forth on both sides. So the rings, now you can see, this is the Choshen folded up, and we know the ring was on this part of the Choshen that was on the back of it. So this was like a big, like a purse. And there are those who would say that the Urim and Tumim were kept inside of it. See if I can get another picture for you. Let's see here. No, that doesn't do it. Sorry. Second, let me take it from a different point. Let's take a look at this here. Right, you can see the blue threads going through there. Right, so they, Yirchasu, I think, means they sort of threaded through the rings that were here. And we'll do just a little bit of what I'd like to do. Let's see here. Is there anything else? Yeah, right there we can see. This is not in color, but these are the blue threads, obviously. But you can see how it fits exactly the description given in the Torah. Okay, so we'll go a little further. Yeah, we certainly have time to do that, right? So, Vayas et me'il ha'ephod ma'aseh oreg, and he made the robe of the ephod. Ma'aseh oreg. This is a work of a weaver, klil tchelet, completely blue. And I do have a picture of that for you. And this is it. This is what we're talking about. So the robe, of course, went underneath the ephod. You can see this is the robe showing underneath. Back into the text here. Ufi ha'me'il b'tocho kafi tachra. So it says, and the mouth, this is the opening of the robe, the tuchor, in it, kafi tachara. And I believe this tachara, let's see if we have interesting. He says shiryan here, which would be like armor, right? Like gosh, I'm trying to think of, the kind of armor that knights would wear, that kind of thing, right? So,
It
so
says here coat of armor.
there we go. Right. Thank you. Okay. Safan lefiv saviv, right, as an edge to its opening all around, lo yikarea, so that it wouldn't tear. And again, I'm going to show you closely what we're talking about. This is how how he's tried to make it. How Moshe Cohen has tried to make this the point here. That's what they're talking about, so that it wouldn't tear. And I believe the robe. I have it elsewhere, trying to memorize each act that the garment was supposed to represent, the various garments. So I think the robe was there. I'd have to double check, but I believe it came to atone for evil thinking, something like that, I believe. Okay. So I can double check. I did write it down elsewhere, right? Vayasu, right? Vayasu al shulei hama'il, and they made on the sleeves of this robe, or in this case, it's the shulayim would be the edge, the bottom edge of the robe. Rimone, pomegranates, tchelet of blue, argaman, and purple, v'tolat shani, and red crimson yarns, moshzar would be again twisted. So again, I'm going to try and show you what that looked like. Let me see if I can take a look at that. So this is what we're talking about. So if you look carefully, you'll see. This is a nice picture of one of these, what they're calling pomegranates. So they're round essentially, right? Okay. Let's go back into the text here. Okay. Ve'asu palmonei zahav tahor, and they made bells of pure gold. Vayitnu et hapalmonim betoch harimonim, and they placed these bells inside these pomegranates. Al shulei hama'il, so in this case, I would have to say on the edges of the robe, saviv, all around, betoch harimonim. They were all around inside or amidst the pomegranates. Ha'amon verimon, a pomegranate, a bell and a pomegranate, ha'amon verimon, a bell and a pomegranate, al shulei ha'me'il, on this bottom edge of the robe, saviv, all around. The sharet, to serve, literally, kasher tziva Hashem et Moshe, just as God had commanded Moses. So here, what would happen is, and we'll go take another look at the whole outfit, so to speak, right? So when the high priest walked, these bells would make a sound. Let's see if we can get a bit. Look at how here he's putting the bell and the pomegranate. On the other hand, we had read that the bells were inside. It sounded like the bells were inside the pomegranates, and there may be actually a difference of opinion here. But on this one, the bell is right in when he says a bell and a pomegranate, a bell and a pomegranate. That's the way he's understanding it here. So, yeah. So it would make sense in a way that the robe was for Lashon Hara, for evil speech, because we're talking about the sound that the robe would make. So like speech. So that I think is correct, in fact, as to what the robe came to atone for. And so there would be all the senses when the high priest would go into the sanctuary, right? You had the menorah for light, you had the showbread table for eating, you had the incense altar in the middle for smell, and then you had the high priest walking around making sounds. So again, the idea of it representing, what it was as human beings, what we do. Let's see if I can go back here to the picture. All right. So let's go here for a second. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop here, and we are going to, this has to do here, the ketonet. Okay, here we are. So the ketonet was an undergarment. It was a white tunic that the high priest wore, and also the regular priests also wore this tunic. We'll just look at the sentence quickly, right? Vayasu et haktonet, they made the tunic shesh maaseh. So shesh would be of linen, I believe, right? Maaseh oreg, again, it was or ariga is knitted, I believe, right? I'm trying to think of this. Yes. So Aaron ulevanav, for Aaron and his sons, right? So let's take a look. That's it, and it just goes through these various things, and I will show you pictures of these tomorrow at our next lesson. So I'm going to stop the share, and okay, Harlan, there you are. Any questions?
Yeah, there was another thing about the bells. Another theory that when you go to somebody's house and you go in their room, you knock on the door before you enter because you don't know what they're doing, and that's what the bells are for. The bell, when they enter the Holy of Holies, they awaken. They say, "God, we're going to come in." So you know they knocked like to go into the Holy of Holies, so God would know that they were coming in. I mean, that's one theory. I mean, there's other theories too on that. That's
Yeah,
what the bells were.
yeah. So my understanding more, I mean, I think the point that you're making is really good in that you don't want to surprise people, that
Yes.
the idea of not eavesdropping or taking people by surprise. Look, God knows everything. So God would certainly know where the high priest was at any given moment, because God, at least the way we understand God, God is aware of where every single individual in the world is. God has a sense and a consciousness to speak in this way, which is not accurate, regarding every element of creation. So I think it's more a way of showing respect that, and also an idea that occurred to me is that very often when you badmouth, since the robe was coming to atone for Lashon Hara, that so often you do that without the person knowing, the person you're talking about. You don't want them to know that you're doing this. And
Oh,
and because the bells were going to show where the person was, right? That's also why it was there. But as to the pomegranates, that's an interesting symbolism, and I'm not sure what that symbolism would have been. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stop the recording, and that'll be it for this